natural resources of Macedonia had not compensated for the fact that it was a disunited country at a fairly backward level of civilization as compared with the Greek city-states. It was still a monarchy and arranged somewhat along tribal lines. What cities existed inside Macedonia were Greek. It was also surrounded by predatory neighbors, Illyrians, Paeonians, Thracians, peoples the Greeks called barbarians, who again and again raided the territory of Macedonia. Philip, in his early 20s, began to transform the Macedonian army. He had been kept as a hostage in Thebes, studied military science under some of the leading Greek generals of the day, and returned to Macedonia not only with a vision of a new kind of army, but with a vision of making Macedonia the greatest nation in the Greek world and himself the master of the Greek world. And he began to expand his borders eastward into Thrace. And by the year 356, not only did he gain mastery over a significant portion of Thrace, but his chariots won in the Olympic Games, recognition that he was a Greek. To the Greeks as a whole, the Macedonians had never really counted as Hellenes, but now Philip was reckoned as part of this great race. And that same day that he learned about a victory over the Thracians, that his chariots had won, he also learned that he had become the father of a son by his wife, Olympias. His very marriage to her was a diplomatic act to secure the rear entrance into Macedonia, the land of Epirus, and she was the sister of the king of Epirus. And so by diplomacy and warfare, Philip secured the existence of Macedonia, which only 3 years before had been in danger. Then in the next 10 years, he transforms Macedonia into a power within the Greek world, making use of military methods when he must, diplomacy when he can. The Athenians would make a peace treaty, and it is one in which Philip essentially guaranteed the Athenians their position and power in the Black Sea, and with it, so critical, their grain supply. Athens could not feed itself. That grain supply was absolutely essential. But for Philip, this was but a breathing space to prepare himself for the final conflict with the Athenians, to bring him to that goal of absolute mastery. And so, starting in 341, he found occasions to break that treaty with the Athenians. Attacks upon cities like Perinthus and Byzantium in the Black Sea area, until by 338, Athens was forced to declare war. Once again, as at the time of Marathon, they raised a citizen army. They made an alliance with Thebes and brought together other Greek city-states to resist Philip. Philip moved rapidly, and by August of 338 had penetrated into the very heartland of Greece itself. And at this little city of Chaeronea, not so very far from Thebes, the army of Macedonia and the army of the allied Greeks under Athens came together. Both had about 30,000 men on their side. Philip's Macedonians fighting in their new formation, the Athenians and Thebans, the Corinthians and their other allies, not the Spartans. The Spartans do not participate, but the allied Greek force fighting as hoplites. And Alexander, the 18-year-old son of Philip, commanded the left wing of his father's army, commanded the cavalry. Such was Philip's faith in his son, already battle-tested. Philip never wanted the destruction of Athens. He wanted its recognition as hegemon, leader of the Greek world. And so he sent to the Athenians an ambassador and told the Athenians all he wanted was an alliance with them, that they would join him as his free, voluntary ally, retaining their own laws, retaining their position in Greece. The Athenian dead who had fallen in the battle were escorted back under an honor guard, led not by Philip, That would be unseemly, inappropriate, but rather by his son Alexander. And the prisoners were all returned. And the Athenians, with the Corinthians, with the other cities of Greeks, except for the Spartans, joined together in a single great league and met together at the Isthmus of Corinth. And at Corinth in 338, this new league of the Greeks elected Philip as their commander-in-chief, joined itself into a perpetual alliance with Macedonia, and elected Philip as commander-in-chief of an expeditionary force to march against the Persian Empire, to take vengeance upon the Persians for the sacrileges ravaged upon Greece by Xerxes when he burned the temples and shrines of the gods, and to liberate the Greek cities of Asia Minor, which had fallen back under the control of the Persians. This was recognition of Macedonia as the leader of Greece and recognition of Philip as the greatest man in Greece. It was also an opportunity for the Greeks to fight side by side with Macedonians and to join together in greater solidarity, his new league of Greece. It was a vision that some of the finest minds of the age, men like Isocrates of Athens, had, of Greeks not fighting against themselves in this perpetual internecine warfare, but together, one nation, the Hellenes, and opening up the entire East to colonization by the Greeks and relieving the pressure on land that was such a cause of civil war. By 336, elements of Philip's army were already landing in Persia. And Philip was planning by midsummer to lead the major portion of his army on this great crusade. His goal was limited: to liberate the Greek cities of Asia Minor, to deliver a smashing blow to the Persians, and to drive them back further into Asia, essentially to make what we would call Syria today, the dividing line between the world of Macedonia and its Greek allies and the land of the Persian king. But it was still a great plan. King Agesilaus of Sparta had failed to do it, and now Philip began the undertaking. But before he did that, he wanted to marry his daughter off. He had chosen to be her new husband, her uncle, the king of Epirus. And the occasion of this wedding in June of 336 was to bring the whole of the Greek world in the form of its ambassadors to his great capital city at Pella, to show them the splendor of his court and how much of a Greek he was. And Pella is indeed a Greek city with magnificent mosaics, glorious Greek temples and tombs and Greek-style houses, and a Greek theater, which was where the wedding was going to be held.